Brookland is Live starts right now with breaking news.
And it is good to be with you on this Wednesday, April 29, 201 here in Brooklyn, 301 on the East Coast, 1201 on the West. I'm Jackson Mitchell. Again, it is Wednesday, April 29th. Good to be with you. We have a lot of news we are going to get to. Want to start with some breaking news into us just within the last hour, where the Fed has decided to keep rates steady. This is for the third consecutive time. Right now, 3.5 to 3.75 is where the interest rates stand right now. Coming up live here, as you take a look there on your screen, Federal Reserve Chairman, likely for the last time serving as the chairman, Jerome Powell, is taking questions. We do want to listen in here for just a moment.
In the current situation, currently, and in sort of what's priced in, which is a relatively quick outcome. If this goes on for much longer and prices go much higher, then we'll feel that much more. And of course, I'm talking about aggregate inflation numbers. We're very well aware that people are experiencing higher gas prices all over the country now, and that hurts. Those hikes may continue to happen, and other things are going to start to reflect airline fares I've mentioned, and other products and services that are dependent upon petroleum and derivatives of petroleum. People are going to start to feel that.
Edward. Thank you, Chair Powell. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So I guess I'll just ask you directly on this. The markets don't see a rate cut at all this year, is what they're predicting. Do you think that we are at the neutral rate? Why or why not?
The neutral rate is we cannot know it with certainty. I think pretty close to the neutral rate. Yeah, I always had it, between 3% and 4%. We're a little north of 3.5%, so that's well in the range of what I would consider a reasonable, but at the higher end of the range of what I would consider reasonable neutral rate. I think the labor market is still probably cooling off just a little bit, and I don't think there's much of a case for any case really for policy looking meaningfully restrictive, maybe mildly restrictive or neutral, I would say.
And I want to follow up on some of the other questions about your future a little bit. The first time we've seen 4 dissents now since October of 1992. Are you handing off a divided Fed?
The thing to remember is we have always had vigorous debates, and they're excellent debates. I have to say they've been really good. And we're in an unusually difficult situation. So we've really had 4 supply shocks. You can say more than 4, but at a minimum, we had the pandemic, we had the invasion of Ukraine, we had tariffs, and now we have Iran and the oil, the oil spike. So every supply shock has the capability of driving inflation up and unemployment up, and what do? Central bank has a really hard time knowing what to do. So the right thing to do is to try to balance the achievement of those 2 goals, and that's what our framework calls for us to do. But these are really tough, difficult judgments. You've got to have a forecast for each variable. You've got to think how long it's going to take to get back to target. You got to think how restrictive or not is policy. So it's only natural that you have a range of views on the committee. People are going to see it different ways. They're going to have different risk tolerances and that kind of thing. I mean, if everybody agreed, that would be surprising, and I think it's partly a function of the extraordinarily challenging set of supply shocks that we've been dealing with now for 5-6 years.
Thank you so much, Chair Powell. Selena Wayne with ABC News. Are you confident that Kevin Warsh will stand up to political pressure from President Trump?
So he testified very strongly to that effect in his hearing, and I'll take him at his word.
And when it comes to gas, right now it's over $4 a gallon. Inflation just hit a 2-year high. Should Americans expect to be paying higher gas prices for the rest of this year? And in your view, does that take a rate cut off of the table? And secondly, by staying on as Fed governor, what message do you think you're sending to the president?
I don't know what gas prices are going to do for the rest of the year. And it will depend on how long the strait remains closed and how quickly it can be reopened and that kind of thing. But remember, when gas prices go up, that's disposable income coming out of people's pockets. So they're going to spend less on other things. So there will be a hit to GDP. So it's a question whether spending, goes down to offset the inflationary effects. So it's not, the answer isn't obvious ex ante whether you should move your rate over because of that. We'll have to see how it evolves.
And the message it sends to President Trump by staying on?
I'll stand on what I said earlier.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. During your tenure, Fed independence has come under pressure in a lot of different ways. And I was just wondering, practically speaking, where do you see Fed independence as coming from? Is it the law? Is it political support from Congress? Is it the actions of the Fed? What sustains Fed independence?
Well, it's to a significant extent, it is the law. And, we've had to go to court to successfully so far to defend it. But the law does create a setting in which the Fed can and is directed to make monetary policy without consideration of political factors. And so part of it is the law. But it goes beyond that, though. There's a set of customs. There's a boundary line between the Fed and the administration, between the Fed and the Treasury Department. And we need to continue to respect those boundaries about what the Fed is responsible for and what the Treasury is responsible for and what the rest of the administration is responsible for. So some of it is legal. In fact, it's all legal at the end of the day, but it's more than just monetary policy. We don't want to use our tools we haven't wanted to use our tools to achieve goals that are really clearly outside our mandate. Every administration looks at our tools and thinks that would be good to repurpose those to serve other purposes, but that's dragging us into politics and into fiscal policy. So we've resisted that.
Well, and maybe another way of asking it, too, is do you think that Fed independence is as strong now as when you became chair? And if so, why?
Look, I think it's at risk. I mean, I think these legal assaults, if you will, as I mentioned, the institution is being battered over these things. We're having to resort to, the courts to enforce our legal, it's not so much independence. It's really the ability to make monetary policy without political considerations. That's what we're talking about, and we've had to do that, and we've been successful so far. But that's not over. None of that is concluded yet, and it's really important. It's not about people who work at the Fed or the institution. It's about the benefits of a central bank that makes decisions based on analysis and our best thinking, rather than trying to help or hurt politicians. It's that there's a bright line between central banks who do one and do the other, and successful countries have uniformly successful advanced economy countries have a really strong set of protections around their central bank just for that reason. So that's what it's all about. I think I am confident, as I said in my remarks, that the Fed will continue to.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking there from the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. Again, just within the last few moments or so, the Federal Reserve has decided to keep interest rates steady for now the third straight meeting at 3.5% to 3.75%. Now, one thing I do want to note about this meeting today, it was a little more divided than usual. Some officials, some members of the board, they wanted to cut rates, while others pushed for clear signals about future policy changes. Now, again, in the end here, the Fed chose to wait to see as inflation has started rising again, and people are getting more worried about the economy. Now, what you heard there from Fed Chair Powell is he said if gas prices continue to rise, if the strait kind of continues to be closed here, that is more spendable money coming away from consumers. He says that is more disposable money is the language he used. And he said that would affect the GDP. The GDP is how much money, the gross domestic product, and that is kind of how much money consumers are putting into businesses. And if they're doing less of that, then that does affect the GDP. And he said that is going to be something to watch for, and did weigh a little bit as to why maybe the decision was to keep rates steady, because, as I noted here few moments ago, inflation is continuing to rise as the economy continues to be under pressure from the war in Iran. We do want to take you right now to another live camera that we are following out of New York City as King Charles continues his visit to the United States. He paid a visit to the 9/11 memorial. Now you're taking a look at a camera. I'm unsure where the exact location is. I know this is within New York City, but I don't know. I do see maybe some animals. Maybe this is some other type of event, but you do see King Charles speaking to some children there and a few other adults there as he is paying a visit to the U.S. We're going to get to his address to Congress that occurred yesterday coming up here in just a few moments, so stick with us for that. Okay, we do want to get to some breaking news that came into us yesterday. Former director of the FBI, James Comey, has been indicted for the second time by the Justice Department. I want to show you an image here. This is from Comey. This is an image that he shared to social media. As you take a look here, you will note 8647 is spelled out in those rocks there, those seashells, and this is what he posted to social media. So this is what the indictment is about, as prosecutors say the message could reasonably be interpreted as a threat against President Donald Trump, leading to the charges that were announced yesterday. And says that this symbol, 8647, symbols a threat to the president and transmit them across state lines. Now, Comey has denied the allegations, saying he is innocent and will fight the charges in court. His attorney argues the case raises First Amendment concerns, while federal officials insist, the prosecution is about protecting the president, not limiting free speech. Now, a warrant has been issued for Comey's arrest, and I do want to read a piece of a report because we know that a kind of preliminary first hearing was held today where Comey did not enter a plea for, again, this indictment that has come. It says Judge William Fitzpatrick informed Comey of the charges against him, saying the two counts both carry up to 5 years in prison. There was no arraignment, and Fitzpatrick did not set conditions for Comey's release, aside from removing any firearms from Comey's household. Now, Comey did not speak during the court session, but his attorney, Patrick Fitzgerald, says he plans to submit notions in federal court alleging vindictive and selective prosecution. So again, no plea from Comey today during that hearing, but still, of course, a case that we are going to monitor. To bring you back about almost 6 months ago, I believe it was actually 5 to be specific here, there was a first indictment brought against Comey, and that was alleging that he lied to Congress, and that was at the same time that an indictment against Letitia James had been brought. Those were both dismissed at the same time. So now, I want to play a clip for you. This is his reaction to the first dismissal of that, and he kind of goes forward to allege that the Trump administration is politically prosecuting him. Take a listen here.
I'm grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. But I was also inspired by the example of the career people who refused to be part of this travesty. It cost some of them their jobs, which is painful, but it preserved their integrity, which is beyond price. And I know they will serve again. This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. I don't care what your politics are, you have to see that as fundamentally un-American and a threat to the rule of law that keeps all of us free. It's time to stand up and show the fools who would frighten us, who would divide us, that we're made of stronger stuff, that we believe in the rule of law, that we believe in the importance of doing things by the law. So stand tall, shine, and keep the faith.
James Comey there. That was, again, his reaction to the dismissal of the first indictment brought to him there. So again, this is a case that we are going to follow and will bring you updates when we get them. We do want to turn to some more breaking news that came in. This was earlier today. The Supreme Court making a ruling on redistricting in a 6-3 decision, striking down Louisiana's congressional redistricting plan that created a second majority black district. The majority found that state lawmakers relied too heavily on race when drawing the map, saying it violated the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. Now, the court said race cannot be dominant factor in redistricting unless it meets strict legal standards. And in this case, Louisiana failed to show that its use of race was necessary to comply with the Voting Rights Act. That is, again, according to the ruling from the Supreme Court. The ruling, it centered on the balance between protecting minority voting power and avoiding racial gerrymandering. State officials had argued the map drawn was drawn to comply with federal law after courts previously found the state's districts likely diluted black voting strength. However, the Supreme Court majority said the evidence did not justify prioritizing race to that degree, and that alternative maps could have met legal requirements without making race the primary driver. Now, in dissent, the liberal justices warned the decision could weaken the Voting Rights Act and make it harder for states to address racial discrimination in redistricting. Again, the dissenters here argued the court is putting states in an impossible position, risking legal trouble whether they consider race too much or not enough. The ruling is expected to have major implications in future redistricting battles, and it is going to be something to monitor. So again, originally federal court said, hey, your maps focus too much on non-African American, till they made a map that focused, and now the Supreme Court says they made a map that focused too much on African Americans there. So it is going to be something to follow. I want to take you to one of the few other live feeds that we are following this hour, and that is over on Capitol hearing, and a hearing that has been going on for quite some time, since early this morning. As you hear some of that audio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, or Defense, however you want to say it there, he is facing tough questions on Capitol Hill today as he testifies for the first time about the Pentagon's proposed $1.5 trillion budget. Again, this for the first time also since the war in Iran had begun. The administration says the funding is designed to boost military capabilities, including drones, missile defense, and naval power, while strengthening U.S. global deterrence. Now, lawmakers, and especially Democrats here, they pressed both men, because also I forgot to mention here, and I apologize about that, but General of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, he is also testifying today. Democrats pressing both men on the cost of and impact of the conflict with Iran, including questions about civilian casualties, strained weapons stockpiles, and the lack of a clear long-term strategy, while many Republicans express support for the spending plan. A hearing underscored growing bipartisan scrutiny over the size of the defense budget and the administration's handling of the war. So we will bring up likely some highlights maybe tomorrow here of that hearing, depending on how the news goes. We don't have any clips to show you right now, but that is what we've watched and analyzed as the hearing on the funding year 2027 budget from the Department of Defense is ongoing there on Capitol Hill. Alrighty, we are going to sneak in our first break of the hour. I do want to note we were having some few issues yesterday, so we're going to try this here and see if we can't get it in. It looks like we've got it for a commercial break. Excuse me, that's what I'm talking about there. So we're going to sneak in our first break of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk about that address that King Charles made to Congress yesterday and the conspiracy theories growing around the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting. That's all coming up in just a few moments on this edition of Brookland News Live. Stick with us. Welcome back here on the Brooklyn News Live on this Wednesday. The war in Iran is continuing and ongoing while fighting has taken a slight pause since President Trump placed that in and I wouldn't say infinited, but it was a ceasefire indefinitely until I guess the president decides he no longer wants to have it. President Donald Trump taking it to social to make a post this morning. Take a look at this, saying, quote, Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They better get smart soon, with President Trump holding what appears to be a firearm behind a battleground, a battlefield here, saying, quote, more Mr. Nice Guy. So that was President Trump on Truth Social this morning. Now, he also made a post just a few days ago, this was actually yesterday, where he said, quote, Iran has just informed us that they are in a, quote, state of collapse. They want us to open, quote, they want us to, quote, open the Hormuz Strait as soon as possible as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump there. So Trump on True Social saying that Iran wanted the U.S. to open the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible, and he also notes that they're still trying to figure out their leadership situation. This comes as there is all new reporting from the Washington Post that suggests Trump has told aides to prepare for an extended blockade of Iran. So that is going to be something to watch for. If you see the byline, it says the president prefers decisive victories, but none of the available options provides him with a swift exit from the conflict. And of course, that is, we know that is what the president has done in prior conflicts. He wants kind of to get out quickly, similar with Venezuela. Kind of, he did what he thought he needed to do and got out of there. But as many allies of President Trump, allies that have gone against him on the choice in the war in Iran, they've noted that this situation is going to be a little different than Venezuela, simply because Iran is not going to stop fighting back. We also learned today that President Donald Trump had what he called a very good phone call with Vladimir Putin, who is the Russian president. So he announced that earlier today in a, we're going to play a piece of the question portion, but he said that today as he brought the 3 astronauts of Artemis 2 to the White House, and we're going to get to that story coming up a little later this hour. So that did happen. He also said in that press conference, in that when he took questions with the astronauts, he said that the Ukraine-Russian war could face a similar timeline to ending that the Iran war would face. We do want to get you out to your fuel prices right now. They are continuing to rise today, $4.22 to yesterday's $4.17. Just the other day, we were reporting they were getting back to $4, $3.74 in Arkansas, $3.76 right here in Jonesboro. Now, I do want to also note the reporting that we brought you, that from the Axios on Monday, that there was a suggestion that Iran wanted to end this war, that they wanted to make a deal and negotiate nuclear power later. No big update. We do know that the president has noted multiple times, not only on social media, but in person, that nuclear power was going to be something that Iran was literally going to just have to simply get rid of before negotiations went on. Not only before that, but within those negotiations, that was going to be a non-negotiable for the U.S. for Iran to do. So we do want to note that there hasn't been any major update. We do know that fighting has for sure slowed there, and the U.S. continues to remain that it is blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, to our live shot there in New York City right now is King Charles. He's visiting New York City. He's talking to what appears to be maybe advisors, students there. I believe it says Harlem Grown there in the background in New York City. Yesterday, the king made an historic address to Congress, to both senators and representatives, in a joint address. He expressed while the UK-US relationship is important, he expressed that, but he also made plenty of jokes as well. I want to play a piece of those remarks from yesterday. This is King Charles. Take a listen.
The aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people. It is needed in order to secure a truly just and lasting peace. From the depths of the Atlantic to the disastrously melting ice caps of the Arctic, the commitment and expertise of the United States and its allies lie at the heart of NATO, pledged to each other's defense, protecting our citizens and interests, keeping North Americans and Europeans safe from our common adversaries. Our defense, intelligence, and security ties are hardwired together through relationships measured not in years, but in decades. Today, thousands of US service personnel, defense officials and their families are stationed in the United Kingdom, as British personnel serve with equal pride across 30 American states. We are building F-35s together, and we have agreed the most ambitious submarine program in history. Or whatever our differences, whatever disagreements we may have, we stand united in our commitment to uphold democracy, to protect all our people from harm, and to salute the courage of those who daily risk their lives in the service of our countries. Standing here today, it is hard not to feel the weight of history on my shoulder, because the modern relationship between our two nations and our own peoples spans not merely 250 years, but over 4 centuries. It is extraordinary to think that I am the 19th in our line of sovereigns to study with daily attention the affairs of America. So I come here today with the highest respect for the United States Congress, this citadel of democracy created to represent the voice of all American people to advance sacred rights and freedoms. Speaking in this renowned chamber of debate and deliberation, I cannot help but think of my late mother, Queen Elizabeth, who in 1991 was also afforded this signal honor and similarly spoke under the watchful eye of the Statue of Freedom above us. Today, I am here on this great occasion in the life of our nations to express the highest regard and friendship of the British people to the people of the United States. Now, as you may know, when I address my own Parliament at Westminster, we still follow an age-old tradition and take a member of Parliament hostage, holding him or her at Buckingham Palace until I am safely returned. These days, we look after our guests rather well, to the point that they often do not want to leave. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, if there were any volunteers for that role here today. As I look back across the centuries, Mr. Speaker, there emerge certain patterns, certain self-evident truths from which we can learn and draw mutual strength. With the spirit of 1776 in our minds, we can perhaps agree that we do not always agree, at least in the first instance. This is a city which symbolizes a period in our shared history, or what Charles Dickens might have called a tale of two Georges. The first president, George Washington, and my 5 times great-grandfather, King George III. King George, as you know, never set foot in America, and please rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I am not here as part of some cunning rearguard action. The founding fathers were bold and imaginative rebels with a cause. 250 years ago, or as we say in the United Kingdom, just the other day, they declared independence.
So some funny moments there on Capitol Hill yesterday as King Charles made his address to Congress. We do have some news within the last this morning. Actually, we're just learning of it though here at Brookland News. 3 Nashville buses, Nashville, Arkansas, what we're talking about here, have collided this morning. Of course, we know that the crash has now been cleared, but you see the report there. 3 Nashville school buses and a car were involved on a crash on I-30. You see there an image, and I'm wondering if we might be able to make it full screen. That does not look likely unless we do this right here. Here is that image, again, on your screen right now, showing the collision. You see kind of a mess of vehicles there. We do know that 14 people were injured. That is the number that we are getting. Excuse me here, 12. I'm just reading this updated report. 14 is what it was this morning. Excuse me. As of noon Wednesday, the scene has been cleared and traffic is moving. State police confirmed 12 people traveling on the school bus were taken to the hospital and all have minor injuries. So we're wishing a speedy recovery for those, and just a scary moment for those students that were on those buses as they collided. We want to bring you that, of course, if you have anyone that you know that goes to the schools in Nashville, Arkansas. Okay, we're going to bring you more on that if we get any more. In the meantime, another quick break. You're watching Brookland News Live. We're back with more on conspiracy theories growing after the White House correspondent Center Plus, a city that can no longer give speeding tickets. You heard that right. What we know about that and why when we come back. A look right now at the moment that led to a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, outside of the Correspondents' Dinner, I should say, now sparking both a major security response and a wave of online conspiracy theories. Authorities say a gunman who has since been identified rushed a security checkpoint with multiple weapons and opened fire before being subdued. President Donald Trump and other officials were evacuated, and at least one agent was injured. Investigators say the suspect not only acted alone, but had a politically motivated After the incident, social media was filled with unproven claims, including that the shooting was, quote, stage or a false flag. These theories had spread rapidly across platforms despite no evidence, with some users misinterpreting details or connecting unrelated events. Experts and officials say the claims are baseless and warning that misinformation tends to spike after high-profile attacks, even when verified reporting clearly shows what happened. That is exactly true. While this video clearly shows the moments, that the things that led up to it, and video released later by President Trump on his social media showed exactly that. I even spoke to one woman who said she believed this incident had been staged. I understand being skeptical of things, and I can agree sometimes being skeptical of events at times, but one thing I will note is that it is really hard for me to get behind theorizing about something, making something up in my head that may not be completely true, even when I have facts in front of me. And the facts are, in this case, that someone, a shooter, tried to get into the ballroom at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton on Saturday night as security was putting up the magnetometers. He tried to breach it. The Secret Service agent opened fire. The suspect opened fire as well. The suspect went down to the ground, was tackled down to the ground and arrested. We don't quite know there was a Secret Service agent that was shot. We don't quite know what shot them, what hit the Secret Service agent just yet. Was it that bullet from the suspect's gun? Was it another Secret Service agent? Was it something else? That's still something that at this point in time is being investigated. And that is the facts behind all of this. And that is what we know at this current moment. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, let you guys know that's the facts of this. It at least at this point in time, there is no evidence that suggests that this event was staged. And I will remind you, stay skeptical, but not so skeptical that you're making things up. So be careful when you read on social media. Make sure you're fact checking it. Look it up. I always say 2 sources or more, and it's true. That's kind of the rule. We work in news, and that's kind of what I do here at Brookland News as well with things like that. So again, conspiracy theories still growing after that shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And a small city right here in Arkansas, Parkin, can no longer issue traffic citations after a state investigation. That state investigation revealed the city had been, well, it was using the funds collected from this speed trap in order to collect money. Nearly $285,000, more than 30% of the city's total expenditures for the year. The findings also followed numerous citizens complain about aggressive ticketing practices along highway corridors running through town there. So that is, again, out of Parkin, Arkansas. Now, as part of the state's order, Parkin police are prohibited from patrolling and issuing traffic citations on major roads, including Highway 64, Highway 184, and Highway 75. Instead, traffic enforcement will be handled by the Arkansas State Police and the Cross County Sheriff's Office. Local officers may still respond to emergencies and calls for service, but they are not allowed to write traffic tickets under the sanction. State officials say the decision is intended to ensure that traffic enforcement is used for public safety rather than as a source of municipal revenue. The sanction will remain in place through at least 2030. So this is the first time I've ever heard of something like this, where an entire city's police department, and I don't know what the judge's ruling would change if it was a bigger city, because Parkland is a fairly small city, but to no longer issue tickets at all, not just speeding tickets, but they are not allowed to write traffic tickets under the sanction. So one very, very interesting and something I'm interested in, and that is going to go until 2030. I'd be interested to see how things change within parking with the Cross County Police and Arkansas State Police, considering, I mean, if you're just a regular person, if you're thinking what I'm thinking in my head here, I mean, if they were going to say, oh, Brooklyn police can no longer issue tickets, you would probably see a lot more speeding, a lot more reckless driving, a lot more people not following the rules. But again, the city of Parkland can no longer issue citations as a part of this new sanction after they were found, after a state audit found that lots of the money on these traffic citations from speeding was used for municipal gain, essentially. And basically they're saying that you can't do that, but what you can do, you can issue citations to keep the roads safe, but not so much that you're trying to make a profit to help your city. So again, Parkland can no longer issue speeding tickets. Okay, want to take you right now to this video. This is Jimmy Kimmel making a joke. Take a listen.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. You know, Melania's birthday is on Sunday. That's right. She's planning to celebrate at home the same way she always does, looking out a window and whispering, "What have I done?" As you're all aware, Melania is a movie star now. Her documentary had a score of 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a website named after her husband's testicles. And I want to congratulate you, Madam First Lady, on your huge accomplishment, the world's first motionless picture. And that... Oh, by the way, before we go any further, Melania, this is Donald. Donald, this is Melania. That was my impression of Jeffrey Epstein. Pretty good, right?
Yeah, so some very, very harsh jokes there made by comedian Jimmy Kimmel. President Trump, Melania both calling for him to be fired. In a social media post Monday afternoon, this is a report from the New York Times. Mr. Trump described the comedian's joke as, quote, really shocking and something far beyond the pale. He extended his post, quote, Jimmy Kimmel should be immediately fired by Disney and ABC. The First Lady had posted about Mr. Kimmel a few hours earlier, saying, quote, his monologue about my family isn't comedy, she wrote. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. She called Kimmel, quote, a coward who shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. She said he, quote, hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough, she wrote. It is time for ABC to take a stand. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt cited Mr. Kimmel's bid after a briefing Monday afternoon. Quote, this kind of rhetoric about President and the First Lady and his supporters is completely deranged. She said, quote, it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night. Representatives for Mr. Kimmel and ABC did not return. Now, if you remember, Mr. Kimmel was fired, put on a suspension. I apologize for that. But he was put on suspension back last year for making jokes about the assassination of President Trump and the backlash that it had gained after that. Alrighty, I want to take you to some video from just moments ago, and again, that is a story that we're going to follow about Jimmy Kimmel, Melania Trump, President Trump, and all of that. Moments ago, President Trump did take questions from the White House. I want to play you a piece of that here. This is President Trump at the White House taking questions just a few moments ago. Let's take a listen here.
Congratulations, and welcome to the White House.
A year and a half ago, we thought you had a dead country. We thought the United States was a dead country, and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and we do. And believe it or not, I mean, when everybody in the world was watching that incredible performance by NASA, these incredible people behind me, where they get the bravery, I have no idea. But you're a big part of it. You really are. We have the hottest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Brad. 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 We'll go out by
Okay, one moment. It looks like there may have been a difficulty with that video because President Trump did take questions. So I do apologize about that, and I do want to play some moments that he took questions. Here's what we'll do here. This is right before he began taking questions here. I'll just go ahead and play it here, and we will listen in. And he will take questions here in just a moment.
And he probably maybe wants to go his own way. That's a good thing. I think ultimately it's a good thing for getting the price of gas down, getting oil down, getting everything down. They have it all. He's a great leader, actually. So no, I'm okay. They're having some problems in OPEC.
Mr. President, Kevin Warsh passed a hurdle today. The Senate Banking Committee confirmed his nomination. It will go to the Senate floor.
We
He'll
need
be on the
somebody.
Fed in mid-May. Is it your expectation that he can persuade the other Fed governors to lower interest rates?
Well,
Because
we'll
they haven't
see.
done
I mean, they
so
should,
recently.
because it's a good time to lower them. We're the most prime country anywhere in the world. We're right now having investments made in our country at a level that nobody's ever seen. No other country's ever seen it. Tens of billions of dollars are being invested. Factories, auto plants, AI. I mean, not just AI, because AI is new. We're leading China by a lot in AI, as you know. I'm letting them build their own electric plants. They're building them, otherwise you could never do it. It was a concept that I came up with. I'm very proud of it. And by the way, they're building electric plants that people in the utility industry have never seen before. They're saying, man, that's incredible. So they're building these massive buildings that cost billions of dollars, and they're building their own electric plants. So they're not taking from a source or the old grid, you know, an old grid that would be able to do it. No, we're leading with everything. But in the history of our beautiful world, there's never been a country that has so much money being invested in it as us. And tremendous number of auto plants, by the way. The auto plants are coming out of Canada, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Germany. They're all coming to the United States. And the reason is I have a very smart tariff policy. You know, we were taken advantage of for years. We were being ripped off by other countries for years. And those days are over. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, regarding Iran, how long are you prepared to maintain the blockade? Could that go several more months?
Well, the blockade is genius, okay? The blockade has been 100% foolproof. It shows how good our Navy is, I can tell you that. Nobody's going to play games. We have the greatest military in the world, and I built much of it during my first term, and we've been building it since. And the greatest anywhere in the world, nobody even close. And you see that, whether it's Venezuela, and they have a good military in Venezuela, but it was over in one day. It was actually over in about 48 minutes. Iran, the same thing. I mean, militarily, we've wiped them out. They have no military left. It's all, the Navy's at the bottom of the sea. The Air Force is never going to fly again. We've got an amazing military. Now they have to cry uncle. That's all they have to do. Just say, we give up. We give up. But their economy is really in trouble. So it's a dead economy.
Can Fury and the blockade get Iran to nuclear talks fast enough, or do you think another wave of strikes will be necessary?
I don't know. It depends. We have talks. We're having talks with them now, and we're not flying anymore with 18-hour flights every time we want to see a piece of paper. We're doing it telephonically, and it's very nice. I make a call, or I have my people make a call, and you know the answer. I always like face-to-face. I consider it better. But when you have to fly 18 hours every time you want to have a meeting, and you know what the meeting's all about, and you know they're going to give you a piece of paper that you don't like before you even leave. It's ridiculous. They've come a long way. The question is whether or not they're going to go far enough. So at this moment, there will never be a deal unless they agree that there will be no nuclear weapons. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Are you considering relocating NASA's headquarters out of D.C.? States like Florida, Texas, and Ohio have expressed interest.
You're going to have to say it differently.
Sorry, are you considering relocating NASA's headquarters out of D.C. once the lease is up? States like Texas, Ohio, and Florida.
Well, the best man to tell you that is the man standing right over here. You heard that question? With those beautiful ears of yours? He's got great hearing, you know. He's got super hearing.
Trick of the trade, sir.
What's the answer to that?
I think the answer to that is we have 10 amazing centers around the country that all kind of bubble up to contribute to the mission we're able to undertake, like Artemis II. I think in terms of the headquarters, we have a lot of people very interested in our mission. So being here in D.C. gives us the opportunity to kind of interact from all our stakeholders, make sure we make the right decisions for the nation.
Yeah, D.C. is an advantage, I guess, for you. It's got to go around. It's got to see some senators, make sure they keep going, right?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yeah, probably staying around's not so bad. And importantly, Washington, D.C. is now one of the safest cities in the country. When I came here a little more than a year ago, it was a very unsafe city. And now, maybe even more importantly than that, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And you helped make it hot. You know, you helped make it hot. When a year and a half ago, and I say it a lot, the King of Saudi Arabia, but others also, the King of Saudi Arabia said, Mr. President, a year and a half ago, we thought you had a dead country. We thought the United States was a dead country, and now you have the hottest country anywhere in the world, and we do. And believe it or not, I mean, when everybody in the world was watching that incredible performance by NASA, these incredible people behind me, where they get the bravery, I have no idea. But you're a big part of it. You really are. We have the hottest country in the world. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Brad. 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 We'll go out that door, guys. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, guys. This way. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, guys. This way.
Alrighty there, President Donald Trump taking questions last hour at the White House, again after hosting four astronauts that were on that Artemis 2 mission that headed across the moon, the historic mission, just about 3 weeks ago or so. As you see the press there exiting the Oval Office. Okay, want to turn to our next story here, and that is a look right now outside live in Brookland at the R.Dot camera as we bring an update where your forecast stands right now. After 2 days of severe weather, the forecast doesn't look all too bad. Tonight, a low of 50. A little chilly today. The sun's starting to peek out, though. Thursday, cloudy skies remain, a high of 66 and a low of 52 as we go into Friday. Cloudy skies, not a lot of sun. We're going to see as we go farther into the week, a high of 67 and a low of 48. You see the sun starting to peek out there as we take a look at that R.Dot camera in Brookland. Okay, last story of the day here, where we want to go to right now is at the Elon Musk testifying in a lawsuit against OpenAI. Today was day 2 of his testimony as he continued. As you take a look, this is Elon Musk yesterday entering the courtroom. As you see him there going through security, he testified and in an Oakland federal court during a high-profile trial against OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, arguing that OpenAI broke its original promise to operate as a non-profit. Now, Musk told the jury he helped found OpenAI to serve as a counterweight to Google and said he only supported limited for-profit activity as long as it did not override the organization's public benefit mission. He now claims the company used his early funding and support in ways that shifted it towards commercial goals. Now, OpenAI has rejected that entire lawsuit, calling it baseless and arguing Musk is only suing only after the AI only after becoming a competitor in the AI space. With his own company XAI. The case centers on whether OpenAI violated a charitable trust tied to Musk's early donations and whether Microsoft improperly benefited from that shift. The trial is still underway and expected to continue, and we will wait for the judge here to make the final ruling on liability and any other remedies. Alrighty, that's going to wrap up our show on this Wednesday. Want to thank you all for joining us throughout the last just about an hour here. 2:54 is the time now. Before we leave, you want to remind you, and I apologize that we weren't here for you yesterday. We'll be back tomorrow, and I hate that yesterday we had some difficulties with some of our technology. We worked it out. We're back now. But remember that you can join us each and every weekday at 2 p.m. We're going to bring you the latest news, weather, more, whatever the top headlines are. We're going to bring those to you, breaking them down, adding perspective, bringing you all the news you need and more. Our initiative hasn't changed since our founding here at Brookland News. And Brookland News Live hasn't changed. Well, it has changed a little bit, but hasn't changed into what it is, to bring you all the news you need and more weekdays 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. We're back here tomorrow.